Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Give us your basic take on we haven't been on in about 2 weeks, on all the insanity, Bear Stearns going for $2 a share, the government financing, J.P. Morgan, and the rest of them to come in and prop up these other groups. Just it seems to me like it's deteriorating at an accelerated rate, or am I wrong?
Alex, you probably aren't wrong. The point is nobody really knows because we still don't know the extent of the problem, and we still nobody can bet on the United States government doing anything intelligent. I mean, look at the past 7 years' record. You can't find one intelligent decision. You see, Alex, as bad as the subprime derivative market is and all the damage it's done and may yet do to the financial system, I regard that almost as a sideshow. And that's all due to too much deregulation. They abolished the Glass-Steagall Act in 1999, the Clinton administration, and this broke the wall between commercial banks and investment banks, and that's where all of these stupid new instruments, the greed, the carelessness, has come from. But it's a sideshow, in my opinion. The real show is the collapse of the United States dollar as the world reserve currency. And that collapse is ongoing, and it's really probably, it's worsened probably by all the panic from the subprime. But it owes its real cause to the budget and trade deficits, which have reached such levels that they no longer appear to be closable. We can't close the trade deficit when total U.S. imports exceed total U.S. manufacturing output. There's no way, even if everything we manufactured we sold abroad, it still wouldn't pay for our imports.
Dr. Roberts, let's say the White House are a bunch of idiots and they're not doing this on purpose and they haven't pulled their money out of their funds before they implode them like Enron and they're not running a scam. Let's just say they're crazy. They've got to have at least a plan in their mind, and they know that when they go around the world bad-mouthing the dollar, that drives it down, while domestically they are saying everything's wonderful and flowery as a political statement. They've got to know cutting interest rates twice in 1 week by a full point total is going to drive the dollar down further. Are they just kind of playing Russian roulette or chicken with the foreigners, saying, well, go ahead, you're holding so many dollars, there's nothing you can do? I mean, what do you think they think they're doing?
Well, Alex, a few weeks back, you and I talked about the dilemma that they face two simultaneous problems that are dangerous, and the solution for the problems are contradictory. To save the impaired and imploding financial system, they need to pump out all the liquidity that they possibly can, thus the low interest rates. But, as you just noted, those low interest rates undermine the dollar and the ability of the government to borrow abroad to finance its deficit. So that's contradictory. Right now, they have decided that the pressure is mainly on the financial system, and that's urgent, and so they're pumping out the liquidity. Now, when it changes and the dollar starts going down at such a precipitous rate that it becomes even more alarming, and they see that, hey, we might not be able to clear the next Treasury auction. What if the bonds aren't taken that we put up? We got to boost the interest rates to give people incentive to continue to lend to us. That's ahead. That may yet come. So, it's
well, we already see foreigners slowing how much money they'll put into bailouts. We see all these Latin American countries saying they're not going to deal in dollars anymore. We see European nations moving away from the dollar, the Arabs moving away. I mean, we see that creep towards the door, everybody getting up and leaving, starting to happen.
Right, but when it hits Washington, will be the day they can't sell the next round of Treasury bonds to finance the government's current budget or to finance the war. You see, the day they bring a new round of Treasury bonds to auction, that's how they sell them.
Yes,
they put them up for bid, and the bidders don't take all the bonds. Then that's when they know they got to jump the interest rates up. And so if they got to jump the interest rates up before they get enough liquidity in to float the insolvent banking system, they're really in trouble.
But sir, I mean, just looking at it as a layman, they're pumping hundreds of billions a month, and then of course selling that debt globally with the bonds. For listeners that don't understand that, then it looks like it's doing nothing, like the body's gone into shock, the blood's just pouring out, there's too many wounds. It appears that them dumping all this money only drives confidence down even more.
Well, liquidity usually, historically, drives the stock market up, and we saw that yesterday.
But it's watered down liquidity.
They're having trouble because the banking system is impaired, and so they're having trouble getting the liquidity that they're pumping out through the banking system into consumer hands to drive the economy. They'll probably fail in that. But they may succeed, and I don't know that they will, but they may succeed in getting liquidity into the banks themselves through these new mechanisms they have of lending money based on these bad securities. And technically they can't buy these securities outright, but in fact they can by continually to roll over the loans. So they can sort of take the securities out of the troubled securities out of the banking system by lending on them and just keep rolling over those loans.
I know you're an economist, you're not a forecaster, but you have made quite a few predictions that have come true. Not a prediction, but in your gut, where do you see this going? Do you think they'll ever be able to pull it out and when we just have a bad recession, or do you see this inevitably leading into just some type of just huge explosion?
I think what you're going to see is the dollar loses its reserve currency role, and that means that the United States cannot any longer pay its bills in its own currency. And so it'll have trouble paying for its imports, oil and otherwise, in manufacturing goods, food, whatever it's trying to import.
So not dying with a bang, going out with a whimper.
I think you'll see what you're seeing is the collapse of American power. Look, here's the fact: the United States is not a financially independent country. It is dependent on foreigners to finance the day-to-day operations of the government, including the wars. It's dependent on foreigners to finance its trade deficit, its overconsumption. So it's not a financially independent country. And the notion that a country that is not financially independent can be the reserve currency is a contradiction in terms. And so if the reserve currency role will be lost when, I don't know, it's in the process of being lost, and that means we can no longer rely on foreigners to pay our bills. So how are they going to close the trade and budget deficits? That will be a major kind of crisis.
Well, I've seen the numbers.
It will depress American living standards further.
So we're going into basically third world serfdom?
I said about 3 years ago at a big conference televised that in 20 years the United States would be a third world country. I'm sticking to that prediction.
Well, I think in many areas it already is. Final segment with Dr. Roberts. We'll talk about several pieces you've written in the last week, Watching the Dollar Die, and the newest one, The End of American Power. But my question when we first come back, Moving Quick with Dr. Roberts, whose new book is out, The Tyranny of Good Intentions, in bookstores everywhere, is that, to me, it's real simple. Wall Street, the big foreign brokerage houses, the banks, are sacrificing this country to make sure they survive. And the dollar.